That is passed 6-1. Thank you. Item 34.
Item 34 is to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, March 8th, 2016 at 7:00 p.m. First reading. An ordinance of the City of Sioux Falls, South Dakota, the city, authorizing the issuance of its sales tax revenue bonds, authorizing the use of the proceeds thereof to pay the cost to design, construct, equip, and furnish an office building to be located at 231 North Dakota Avenue, and landscaping, street, and site improvements and signage with respect to the building and Van Epps Park for use by the city for various governmental purposes and the cost of issuance thereof, and pledging a portion of the sales and use tax proceeds of the city to the payment of said sales tax revenue bonds, fixing the terms of such sales tax revenue bonds, authorizing the execution and delivery of a second supplemental indenture to an amended and restated indenture of trust between the city and the First National Bank in Sioux Falls, and authorizing the sale, execution, and delivery of such sales tax revenue bonds in an amount not to exceed $21,900,000, plus costs of issuance, capitalized interest, if any, and debt service reserve funds.
Tracy?
Good evening, Tracy Turback with the Finance Office. This is the ordinance that would provide the financing for the proposed office building to be located just north of the 8th and Dakota parking ramp. We had a very good discussion this afternoon at the council informational meeting about the bond ordinance itself as well as the project. As you folks know, last week at the informational meeting, we had the team here to talk about the project. We gave an extensive presentation. A lot of those same people are here tonight from the project team. But what I want to do now, I would ask that our bond counsel, Bruce Bonjour, address the council and just briefly step you through the ordinance and what that ordinance will do and what it's authorizing in terms of the bond sale. So if you've got questions for any of us at all about the bond ordinance, the bond financing, or the project itself, I think we've got the right people here tonight to do that. I also want to mention we have representatives from PFM, our financial advisory firm. I don't intend for them to make any presentation. They did speak to the council this afternoon, but I do want you to know they are here to answer any questions that you folks may have as well. So with that, I will turn it over to Bruce Bonjour, our bond counsel. Thank you.
Thank you, Tracy. Welcome, Bruce.
Thank you. I am Bruce Bonjour. I'm with the law firm of Perkins Coie. I'm based in Chicago. I was also your bond counsel for your convention center bonds and drafted the amended and restated trust indenture pursuant to which your sales tax bonds are all issued. They're all parity bonds, so they all get issued for separate projects, but they're secured commonly by your second penny sales tax. The ordinance that you have in your package has two exhibits to it. One is a notice of public sale, and the second is a supplemental indenture. Excuse me, second supplemental indenture, which ties into the indenture I just referenced. The ordinance is in a traditional form, and that is that the first 3 pages or so are actually a preamble. They're whereas clauses that describe the history of the City of Sioux Falls sales tax financings. Dates back to 1988. That was the indenture we amended and restated in 2012. The ordinance then describes the city administration building to be located on Dakota Avenue, yes. And then proceeds to describe the parameters pursuant to which the mayor and your authorized officers will be permitted to sell bonds to finance the project. Those parameters are a cost of the project, $21.9 million, plus an amount of bonds sufficient to fund a debt service reserve fund, which is 1 year's debt service principal and interest, capitalized interest, that would be paying interest until the sales tax takes over to pay principal and interest, and cost of issuance for the issuance of the bonds. Total maximum principal amount, therefore, when you add those up, would be $25 million. The expectation is there's cushion there that the actual bond issue would be below $25 million. The other parameters are a final maturity of November 15, 2036, in other words, approximately 20 years. An interest rate in average overall true interest cost of 5%. The expectation is that that also has cushion. At today's rates, it would be less. The bonds will be sold at a competitive sale. So the notice of sale that I mentioned, which is an exhibit to the ordinance, will actually be published. And banks and underwriters will bid, closed bid envelopes, take the lowest responsible bidder for the lowest interest cost for your bonds. And the final parameter, I believe, material here is that the purchasers will have to pay at least 99.5% of the dollar amount of the bonds. In other words, they can't bid with a greater discount to purchase the bonds. In today's market, the expectation is they will actually bid a premium above the par amount of the bonds, which would produce greater proceeds than the principal amount borrowed. Upon second reading and publication, the mayor and your city officers then would be authorized to sell the bonds pursuant to those parameters, and we could proceed with the construction of the project in due course. Questions?
Bruce, thank you very much, and thanks for coming to Sioux Falls. We appreciate that.
Happy to.
Tracy, is there anybody else? Very good, very good. Well, Bruce, thank you. Tracy, thank you. Council, questions, comments on this first reading? Councilor Stagers.
Yeah, yes, if I could clarify, how many people are going to be put in the building after it's constructed?
Sue?
Good evening. Sue Kwan-McEtten, Director of Central Services. We're anticipating 95 to 100 people initially in the new building. They will be moving from a variety of different buildings, some from City Hall, some from other buildings. The engineering staff in total, including the engineers that are currently in the basement of City Hall, would be moving. People from second floor, Public Works admin, Parks admin, and utility billing potentially. So round figures 95 to 100 people on day one.
Councilor Stagers, yes, sir. Keep
So
going.
I've got another question too. A number of people have contacted me about this building, and a number of people have suggested, why didn't the city just simply try to rent a building downtown, or why didn't the city just simply try to build a very modest building downtown? Can you give an explanation for that?
Yes, we have spent since 2012, so going on 4 years of researching other possible locations, whether it be leasing, whether it be building, whether it be buying an existing building. All told, we vetted through dozens, at least 24 different options. What we found that in the downtown area in particular, many of the buildings that we toured, and we did tour a lot of them, just simply aren't big enough to help us with our future growth needs. Some of the bigger buildings would probably be fine for maybe 5 years, maybe 10 years, but not enough for the 3 decades that we're planning for. So parking was a consideration. Location was another major consideration, and we did consider some properties that weren't necessarily right in the downtown area, but we didn't find any that we felt would be a good fit for us and be in close proximity to City Hall, since we have no plans to vacate City Hall. That answers your question.
Councilor, Sue, Councilor Stagers also asked about the modesty of the building.
Yes.
Could you address that too, please?
So the plan was that, the plan is that we will build a 3-story building initially. The first 2 floors would be occupied right away, but with some growth space in both of those first 2 floors.
We will build a third-floor shell anticipating future growth. And the reason that we're doing it that way is the cost effectiveness of building it up front that way. We're also putting in footings and foundations to allow us to, at some point down the road, should we desire to, we can add a fourth story to it. We feel that this is prudent and will get us through for the next 30-plus years. We'll also vacate some area within City Hall so that we have growth in that building as well for the departments that will still be housed there. And this will allow us to vacate leased space so that we no longer have to lease at all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Sayers. Councilor Jameson.
If it will, I would just state that I have huge reservations against this borrowing of the money to build a building. But there are ongoing conversations with Sue and other staff members as well as the public regarding options and essentially all the details of this project. So I'm going to make a motion to approve or set the hearing for Tuesday, March 8th because of that ongoing channel of communication and new information that is still in the opportunity to gain. So in that effort, I'll make a motion.
Councilor Jameson, thank you. Is there a second?
Second, Erpenbach.
There has been a motion to set a date of hearing and second reading for Tuesday, March 8th by Councilor Jameson, second by Councilor Erpenbach. Discussion on the motion. Councilor Erickson.
No discussion. I have a substitute motion.
Thank you, Councilor.
Substitute motion to delay the vote till Tuesday, April 5th to allow ample time for research and community to be able to have a little more say, give some time so we're not making a $22 million decision in 8 days. So I just ask for the council's support to go ahead and delay that till Tuesday, April 5th and continue to do our research as well as get the questions that we have answered, need answered.
And I will second that.
There's been a motion to amend the motion, Councilor Jameson, or substitute motion, thank you, to Tuesday, April 8th, or April 5th? April 5th, 2016, and it has been seconded. Discussion on the replacement motion, please. Yes, I'm going to go to Councilor Rolfing first because you seconded it. Councilor Rolfing, and then I'm going to go to Councilor Bach.
Thank you. I just I served on the committee that helped put this all together with mostly the help of the staff, and I'm just feeling that we need just a little bit more time with the information we've been given in the last few minutes, in the last few days. I'm not against the proposal, but I would like a little bit more time to get some answers to things, and so I'm in favor and would urge you to vote for this too.
Councilor, thank you. Councilor Bach.
I just wanted to add a couple of things because people are talking to all of us, and there were just some things that came to me as we were in conversation this afternoon. I appreciated the amount of time we were able to spend really kind of hashing through this thing. A couple of things I want us all to remember, and I'm going to say this to citizens as they talk to me over the next couple of weeks. Number one, let's remember that the Law Enforcement Center isn't very far from this building, and it was not built to be expandable. Let's take that lesson. Let's learn that lesson, that building is teaching us. And perhaps this new building is something that we might be able to help rectify that mistake with the Law Enforcement Center. Maybe there's expansion possibilities there. The other thing to think about is that idea of counties sharing space. Let's be realistic about this idea of a possible sort of almost a government mall along there, but let's be realistic with this idea that the county, that we are the county, that us as citizens are the county, and that we need to be realistic about the space that's available to them, to that government, and to think about how do these two governments work together, and how does that space get used most appropriately. And then the other piece that I want is, and I'll say this to citizens over and over again in the next couple of weeks, is to remember that the $21.9 million is not all just a building. Only about $18 million of that is the building itself. Let's remember we're also talking about parking. We're talking about making that better use of that space in front of the building in terms of parking there on Dakota Avenue. And it includes that whole wonderful park space between the building and Minnesota Avenue. So that's how we get to 21.9 million. It is just eight, sorry, I didn't mean it that way, but it's $18 million is the building itself, and that there is much more to this than just just a building for a few people for a couple of years. This is a much broader topic, and I really want the community to think of it that way, that this is not about just the next 5 years. It is about a long-term goal, and it's not getting any cheaper. That's my statement.
Councilors, thank you. A roll call vote, please.
Council members Rolfing,
Yes?
Staggers.
Once again, this is the
This is the vote.
amendment.
This is the amended, replacement motion, Councilor Staggers, and it's to, instead of the March 8th date, it's April 5th, 2016.
Okay. Yes.
Thank you, sir.
Anderson,
Yes.
Erickson,
Yes.
Erpenbach,
Yes.
Jamison,
Yes.
Karski,
Yes.
Kylie.
Yes.
Council, thank you. That has passed 8-0. Item 35.